You're listening to The Greeks Gridiron. Now here's your host, Ethan Haristadoulou.
Welcome back, everybody, to The Greeks Gridiron and to a much shorter than typical, but still NFL Picks edition today. Because of some changes going on in my professional life and the way my job is working out right now, I am only going to be doing Thursday Night Football's game today, and then the rest of my picks are going to be coming out tomorrow. I'm currently still just kind of juggling through what my new responsibilities at work are and everything, and it's kind of flipped my work schedule a bit here, so I just have not had the time to put everything together. So I decided today we'll crank out Thursday Night Football. Tomorrow I'll get the rest of the week's games done for you all, so make sure you keep your eyes out for that. But we are diving into exclusively San Francisco going into Seattle to take on the Seahawks. I invite you all to comment down below. Let me hear your thoughts, your opinions on this matchup here. Who do you like best coming into this Thursday night game? We are going into week 6 now of the NFL. We're going into the first third of the season wrapping up. We're already that far into the year. It's getting pretty crazy. So we dive in. We're going to take a look at this here. Both of these teams coming in off of big upset losses last week. San Francisco dropping a game at home to the Arizona Cardinals, the Seattle Seahawks dropping their game at home to the New York Giants. I think 2 upset losses that not a lot of people really saw coming, considering the state of both those teams and their opponents that were coming in here. So when you look at this matchup here, an important win for both of the teams. However, I would say that I think this game is just a little bit more important for the San Francisco 49ers coming in at 2-3 as opposed to Seattle, who's sitting at 3-2 and with a loss only fall to 500. If San Francisco comes out of this game with a loss here, you're looking at 2-4, and that is not a good place to be, but B, considering expectations for what this San Francisco 49ers team is supposed to be all about, not something they, I guess you should say, would want to find themselves in. Now, the first thing I'm looking at here is, of course, going to be that Seattle Seahawks defense and how they handle Brock Purdy. And the big reason for that is because there's a handful of injuries that we need to keep an eye on for this Seattle Seahawks team. Currently, right now, as it stands, defensive tackle Byron Murphy is set out for this game here. You also have pass rusher Uchenna Nwosu out. Tariq Woolen is going to miss this game as well. And then on top of that, Julian Love was limited in practice both Tuesday and Wednesday with a hamstring injury, and there is a chance that he misses this matchup. You also have a couple other guys like Derek Hall and Boye Mafe who are listed on that injury report as well, but full participants yesterday. It seems like they should be able to go. I'd be a little surprised if either one of those don't play, barring some setback going into the game, maybe like during warmups or something. But you're looking at potentially 4 significant pieces of your defense missing this game here, and that's going to be a bit of a problem for Seattle with the offense that they're going up against in San Fran. Now, for me, with Seattle, stopping what Brock Purdy does, and that is dishing out the football and ripping off chunk yards, play after play, pass after pass, is going to be the key here. Brock Purdy leads the league right now in yards per attempt at a whopping 8.8 yards per completion. Seattle's defense ranking number 8 in yards per attempt allowed. They've got to get tight on the back end of that defense there. I will say, for what it's worth, Brock Purdy sitting on 4 interceptions now through the 5 games that San Francisco has played. He has been shaky, especially last week. A couple of just really poor decision-making type of throws when it came to the 2 interceptions he had, especially the game-sealing one that ended the comeback that they were going to potentially go on there late in that game against the Arizona Cardinals. But this is going to be the key for the Seattle Seahawks. Can they slow down Brock Purdy, who to this point in his career has been extremely efficient with the football? He does an excellent job of putting the ball where it needs to be, keeping it out of trouble, and just, again, ripping off chunk plays after chunk plays with that league-leading 8.8 yards per attempt. Now, for San Francisco, with them defensively, I think the key for them is going to be making sure that they bottle up running back Kenneth Walker here. With only 19 yards in the loss to the New York Giants last week, I think the one thing that really stood out to me in that matchup was essentially the fact that that was a one-dimensional offense for Seattle from start to finish. And it's not like they were down by 20 or something like that trying to play catch-up. It was a tight game. Hell, they even had the lead early in the matchup. But overall, if this team can't run the football successfully, I think it kind of puts them in a bind where they're too predictable, and for whatever the reason is, they're not able to be as effective. When you look at Walker and just what he did in week number 4, and then when he came back from, week number 1, and what he did in week number 4, coming back from injury after missing weeks 2 and 3, he was averaging 5.9 yards per attempt during those 2 games there. And Seattle obviously putting up a fair amount of points in those matchups, a big reason why they were able to grind out that win in week number 1 and keep pace with the Detroit Lions in week number 4. If you force Seattle to be one-dimensional, I do think that the 49ers should be in pretty good shape, especially defensively, going up against that Seahawks team. And for them, I mean, defensively right now, the biggest concern, while it doesn't really attribute all that much to the run game, you're going to be without Talanoa Hufanga, who pretty important cog to that defense, don't get me wrong, and Jordan Elliott is set to be out as well. But you don't have very many things injury-wise that are keeping you in a spot where you should be too worried. I mean, Fred Warner is still listed on the injury report with his ankle issue, but it sounds like he should be good to go from everything that I've been reading. You also have like Charvarius Ward, who's listed as questionable as well, but a lot of those guys lean more towards what they do in the past, Hufanga being the exception, being the safety that he is. But overall, I think if you can just slow down Kenneth Walker, you should be all right. Then the big question that I have, and this is kind of for both teams here, because I'm very curious in how this ends up, because I feel like this kind of shapes the game, is a big reason why I'm bringing it up here, is which offensive line pulls up, shows up, and has themselves a performance. And the reason I say that is because when you look at both of these teams, especially up front with what they do, they are 2 teams inside the top 10 in pressure rate, inside the top 10 in sacks. You have considerable human forces of nature on both sides of this football game, on both the Seahawks and the San Francisco 49ers getting after the quarterback. Now, again, it could get slowed down a little bit on Seattle's end with the injuries that they're dealing with here. Hopefully, Boye Mafe is back, and hopefully Derek Hall is as well. Having those 2 guys should be key and help at least mitigate the loss of not having a guy like Uchenna Nwosu and Byron Murphy over there on the interior of the D-line. But I think that whichever one of these offensive lines can protect their quarterback best, and on top of that, I guess you should say as well, be able to open up some running lanes for their running backs with, again, Kenneth Walker being so talented in Seattle. You have Jordan Mason doing an excellent job in relief for Christian McCaffrey on San Francisco's end. Whichever one of those O-lines holds up best, I think that team finds the most success and is more than likely to end up coming away with the W here. Now, as for who I think is going to actually win this matchup here, this is a really tough one because right now, as it stands, this game is extremely tight. Now, a lot of people are looking at Seattle as a team that's 3-2, starting out 3-0, and they've kind of been, exposed to this point now after that 3-0 start with back-to-back losses. But I don't think it's that simple. They're dealing with a lot of injuries right now, especially on the defensive side of the ball, and they have been dealing with a lot of injuries over the last handful of weeks. And while everyone's hurting, I get that. I feel like the Seahawks injury report week in and week out has been extensively long, to say the least, and it is something that is worth considering with them dropping the last couple of games, and especially like last week as well against the Giants. You would just think that if you had a few more guys on the football field that are supposed to be on that football field taking those starting reps for you, you maybe don't wind up losing that football game. Again, if, ands, and buts, but the fact of the matter is they did lose. On San Francisco's end, you're a team that is supposed to be a juggernaut, a Super Bowl contender, who is down Christian McCaffrey at this moment here, and you've been missing some stars along the way over the last few weeks as well that have, taken a game or 2 off and have found their way back into the fold. But last week, you were fairly healthy for the most part, all things considered, and you dropped a game to the Arizona Cardinals that you should not have dropped, and you look at what happened against the Los Angeles Rams as well, a struggle to close out football games, and that seems to be a big part of that seems to be that you're missing Christian McCaffrey, the guy that is your closer who can help you put away those games. Again, Jordan Mason's done an excellent job, but he's not Christian McCaffrey at the end of the day. He has been a fantastic guy on the ground, but he doesn't pose the threat to defenses the way Christian McCaffrey does. He doesn't bring that level of respect that Christian McCaffrey brings against opposing defenses. So I do feel like maybe that's a piece as to why, but also there are just, again, the poor decision-making from Brock Purdy. On top of that, the defense just allowing things to get by them that they wouldn't typically, I feel like, in years past. The San Francisco Francisco 49ers in a weird spot right now. So this game's tight. It's not as cut and dry as you might assume it would be when you think, oh, maybe this, the juggernaut San Fran versus a Seattle Seahawks that's maybe been exposed and the 49ers are down and out, or however you want to spin the narrative. This is a tight contest. That all being said, though, I think personally, I'm going to lean San Francisco in this game here. And a big reason as to why, and I said it as I kicked off this breakdown here, is going to be because of expectations and this being more so of a must-win game for San Francisco than it is for the Seattle Seahawks. It's going to be tough. It's in Seattle. The 12s are very real over there. I get what it's like playing over in Seattle, being a tough crowd, being a tough environment to go into and win. But San Francisco needs to win this football game here. Them falling to 2-4 puts them in a very ugly situation, all things considered, with, the loss in the Super Bowl in overtime last year. Going into this year, the talks of a Super Bowl hangover to this point, you fall to 2-4 into third in your division because you have that loss to the Arizona Cardinals now and the Rams on top of that. If the Rams find a way to get another win, and then on top of that, you lose and Arizona wins, you're looking at fourth in the division because you have losses now to every single team in your division, and you're tied as far as wins go. That is not the place anyone anticipated San Fran, and I would assume that Kyle Shanahan has that in the back of his mind. The rest of that team has that in the back of their mind. So there might just be a slight bit more of motivation on San Francisco's end. I could be wrong, but it just feels like this game at this point in time is more so a must-win for San Francisco with all the expectations they had weighing on them coming into this season here. So if San Francisco doesn't come out with the win, that's going to be ugly. So I'll take San Francisco, and I think it's going to be another tight ball game. I like San Francisco 27-25. There's going to be some wonky scoring going on in there, but we've been getting some interesting scores the last few weeks of the season here. But I think it's a good contest. It's a competitive contest. Every single NFC West game between the 49ers and their division rival has been a down to the wire type of contest here. So I expect more of the same here. That division is always competitive between each other, and I would be shocked to not see the same thing here as well going into Thursday night, especially on a short week as well. So give me San Francisco 27-25. Fun contest, exciting one for potentially this, not the season on the line, but a pretty important game for San Francisco in my eyes. But that is what I'm looking at for Thursday Night Football. Dive into that comment section. I want to hear from you all. Again, apologies for not getting the entire group of predictions out today. They will be out tomorrow. I'll have them out pretty early in the day as well. I'm pretty close to having the whole thing done, but I'm still missing a few games that I need to prep up before I'm ready. So we'll talk again tomorrow. Fire away in the comment section. If you made it to the end, as always, I greatly appreciate it, but I'll catch you all next time. Have a good one.